Okay, welcome everybody to this session. Welcome our participants, welcome to the public, welcome on YouTube to this session of innovative and effective conservation in the Chaco-Pantanal with local communities. We have an exciting program ahead of us. It looks at a very unique area in the Pantanal and the Chaco, an area which is of course heavily under threat. I would like to shortly introduce you to our speakers, which are actually in Bolivia and in Paraguay. So firstly, I would like to introduce Maria Teresa from Natura Bolivia. Hello, Maria Teresa. Yes. Yes, Maria Teresa.
Hello to everyone. I am here from Bolivia and I will be happy to be in this session.
Thank you. And Jose Cartes, the director from Huira, Paraguay.
Hello, everyone. I cannot open my video, sorry. But just to say hello to nice people there, I will start my video. Hello,
there
everyone.
You are. Hey.
Yes.
Hi, Pepe.
Here
Great that you're there from all the way from Paraguay. It's amazing that we can connect all this. And then third, yes, hello. Hi. And thirdly, I would like to invite Machi Chiles from Nativa Bolivia.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon to all. Good morning here in Bolivia, but hello, how are you? Happy to be here.
Great that you are able to join us, Machi, through this connection. And yes, let's start with the introduction. So in this session that can be followed both here at the IUCN Congress, but it can also be followed at the our YouTube channel. So if you have a comment, please comment it in the live stream. And then we will look at that if you have any questions regarding this session, so we can have a discussion regarding this. I would like to go to the next slide. So this presentation will look at the innovative and effective conservation of a unique area in the Chaco, which is, and that will be followed by 3 case studies by people that have been working on this for years, experts, and it will start with an overall view of the area, the big vision of the area, followed by landscape territorial governance in one particular municipality of this large region, and then finally Natura Bolivia will explain something about a very unique mechanism that can also be applied to conserve this area. So next slide, please. So the Gran Chaco is an area in South America. As you can see, in the heart of South America, it's one of the largest. It's the 2nd largest forest area in South America. It's a dry forest ecosystem. And in this ecosystem, there is a huge biodiversity with great mammals, such as jaguar, tapir, etc., and a very rich cultural diversity of indigenous people, of farmers, so it's a very unique area. And at the same time, it is, next slide, please. It is threatened by huge deforestation in the last couple of years, especially in Argentina and in Paraguay. Mostly cattle ranching and soy plantations have occurred, and a large deforestation took place there. However, there is still a lot of forest left in this area, and the northern part of the Chaco is a very unique area, as there is a transboundary area which is fully conserved. And that's on this area we will focus in this presentation. So next slide, please. As you can see, it's here. It's a joint area with a lot of huge conservation areas, uncontacted tribes. The uncontacted Ayureo tribe is in this area still. It is as unique as a piece of Amazon forest, but it lacks the attention. However, we're going to change that here. So I would like to show a small video showing the importance of this area. And in this video, you will see what.
20 millones de hectáreas para la conservación, evitando un equivalente a 30 millones de toneladas de dióxido de carbono al año, más de 10 unidades de conservación. Este gran paisaje tiene grandes desafíos: conservar la naturaleza, conectar la biodiversidad, garantizar los medios de vida sostenible para las comunidades y los habitantes del gran paisaje en el ámbito del respeto de su cultura y sus tradiciones. Desarrollar una red de áreas protegidas y su conectividad a través de corredores biológicos y culturales. Soluciones basadas en la naturaleza y la promoción del desarrollo sostenible de los recursos naturales. El enfoque de conservación de paisaje es un territorio definido en el que propietario público o privado que posea un valor de conservación paisajístico, natural o cultural, de interés especial, regional o nacional, para implementar una estrategia de conservación y desarrollo local. El gran paisaje Chaco-Pantanal propone la protección a través de promover una gestión efectiva conformadas por áreas protegidas en buen estado de conservación en Bolivia y Paraguay. El gran paisaje Chaco-Pantanal es la oportunidad de articular acciones binacionales de gran escala para grandes problemas y amenazas. Es la oportunidad de unir esfuerzos y consolidar la conservación de la naturaleza para la gente y sus territorios.
Yes, that indeed. As you can see, the images are just amazing. It is an area of over 20 million hectares of forest. It's wild. It's in many places, nobody or Western civilization doesn't reach it, and it is so strong, such a huge block. And I would like to now invite Machi Chiles from Nativa Bolivia to further talk about this area. Machi.
Thank you, Sander. Thank you very much. Well, my name is Marcelo Siles. Everybody call me Machi because it's easier to say that than say everything. I'm going to talk to you now about the landscape vision that we have on this great conservation landscape, Chaco-Pantanal. Next, please. Well, everything started in 2018 when Nativa was able to update the information of the original assessment made by TNC in 2005, where we analyzed the different land use changes that occur in the area during the 13-year period from the last original assessment to the new one. And also look at the priority conservation areas that were identified in these places. So we identified the most viable alternative to improve the sustainability in order to contribute better decision-making for the Great Chaco-Pantanal ecoregion. Next, please. As you can see, as Sander was saying in the introduction and also in the video, the Great Chaco ecoregion shows the highest deforestation rate at the global, continental, and national scale, especially in Argentina and Paraguay. From 1976 to 2017, more than 17.9 million hectares were deforested or lost in the Great Chaco area, and an average of 395,000 hectares per year. Imagine how is that? It's amazing how big it is. But the interesting part is right here in this area, where you have almost no deforestation in the last 13 years. Next, please. We work at identifying ecological and agricultural corridors, which are available for conservation alternative in the ecoregion. We also work looking at the main core conservation areas as protected areas in green here. And then the blue ones are the light blue ones are the corridors. And then you can also have the cultural corridors among these areas. And also we work in the whole Chaco, identifying these kind of corridors, biological and biocultural corridors. Next, please. Facing this ecosystem transformation that I show you with the deforestation rates and also with the things that are happening so far, a new conservation initiative was born. That's called the Great Chaco-Pantanal National Conservation Landscape, CAIA Defensores del Chaco. CAIA in Bolivia and Defensores del Chaco in Paraguay. This whole area in here is what we call the Great Chaco-Pantanal National Conservation Landscape. Next, please. There are more than 90 million hectares connected and preserved in the area. 19 million of hectares made of national protected areas, local protected areas in Bolivia, and also national protected areas in Paraguay. What we're looking at is trying to get a conservation landscape in the Chaco-Pantanal at the binational level, trying to implement to make this conservation landscape to be able to identify the human landscape and the biological landscape in order to show where the main areas of our conservation actions will be implemented and will be successful in the area in order to strengthen the natural ecosystem architecture in the area. Next, please. Well, why is so good this area? Well, a few places in the world has this potential. You have an impressive block of Chacoan vegetation with a transition between Chaco and Pantanal. A big vegetation formation you can only find it here in this area. It's called Abayoy, which is a transition between Chaco, Chiquitania, and Pantanal. There's almost 20 million hectares with different many forest ecosystems, grasslands, and wetlands. And it's a great opportunity for the implementation of a conservation landscape approach. Next, please. Next, thank you. Well, it's one of the best preserved area with a very, very good conservation status, as you saw that in the slide with the deforestation rates. It's the largest continuous landscape for the conservation of high habitat requirement species like jaguar and giant armadillo and many other ones that they need these high habitat requirements. There is the presence of the only uncontacted indigenous people outside the Amazon basin. As Sandra was saying, there's a whole new Ayoreo population that is not contacted by the Western world. Next, please. Well, what we have done before for this, we have a theory of change, which is obviously we need to have that in order to be able to advance in the next step of this great binational Chaco-Pantanal conservation landscape. We have a network of protected areas with an efficient connection and management in a transboundary region of the Chaco, Chiquitania, and Pantanal, located between Bolivia and Paraguay. We're seeking a healthy habitat development and a sustainable development for local population in order to preserve biodiversity and strengthen this biodiversity and local population climate resilience. We already have a financial strategy developed for the whole landscape. We have, as you can see in the video, we have this visual entity of this great landscape ready. And we're working with different government levels, national and local levels, for the wildfire control, wildfire monitoring, and biodiversity monitoring, which is really important in this moment. Right now, we're facing the second big fire season in the area. So far, we have lost 140,000 hectares due to a fire that started in 19th of August until the 29th. So, and the fire is still going on with the small places in the area. Next, please. And that's it. I mean, thank you very much for listening to me. And go ahead, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcelo. I would also like to reiterate your message through a video which actually shows from various actors in the region the strong and the importance of the area. So let's look at that. As due to the COVID measures, many of those people were intended to be here, of course, but they couldn't travel last minute even. So they are coming to you from this direction. So in that sense, next video, please.
Hablar del gran paisaje de conservación que hay a defensores es hablar de una de las oportunidades magníficas que tenemos a nivel mundial para conservar un hábitat de importancia para especies como el jaguar, como el tatú carreta, como un montón de especies que tienen un requerimiento grande de hábitat.
Hoy por hoy es el único lugar a nivel del mundo que tiene los mejores bosques en estado de buena conservación. O sea, quiero decir que no está intervenido, está en protección. Entonces, para nosotros y para el Chaco americano es que actúa como una bisagra entre los diferentes tipos de ecosistemas que ayudan justamente a contribuir al tema del pulmón del planeta.
El Gran Paisaje es una región vasta, muy extensa, que se encuentra en el norte de Paraguay, colindando con nuestro país vecino Bolivia, y es una región que contiene los mayores parques nacionales, las mayores áreas protegidas de la región. Este paisaje no es solamente natural, también habita gente dentro del paisaje. Por eso también su importancia sociocultural, porque hay muchos pueblos indígenas que habitan principalmente en la zona de Bolivia, en la zona de Paraguay también, e incluso hay comunidades que todavía mantienen grupos silvícolas que se aíslan de la sociedad moderna.
Creo yo de que el Gran Paisaje es el patrimonio natural, cultural, podría decir yo también, lo cual nos identifica a nosotros como guaraníes. Es muy importante para nosotros, porque, a ver, un ejemplo como guaraní, nosotros nos identificamos porque es nuestra vida, nuestra vida misma está dentro de la naturaleza, ¿no?
Cuando hablamos del gran paisaje de conservación binacional Caía Gran Chaco, estamos hablando de un área geográfica que tiene conectividad y que abarca alrededor de 20 millones de hectáreas. Cuando hablamos de un paisaje, estamos hablando de características ambientales, socioculturales, económicas que coinciden en un área geográfica específica y que deben establecerse como una unidad de planificación y como una unidad de gestión en la perspectiva del desarrollo sostenible del paisaje.
Entonces es fundamental pensar en que este paisaje, que además integra ecorregiones como la del Gran Chaco, como la del Pantanal, como la de la Chiquitanía, como la del Cerrado brasilero, es un lugar donde se tienen que desarrollar procesos de conservación, de protección de la naturaleza, y también en aquellas zonas que están permitidas, que no son parques, o que dentro de los parques están permitidas, desarrollar actividades humanas bajo buenas prácticas productivas y con el concepto del desarrollo sostenible.
So this was a video which shows all very important actors that are working in this enormous landscape, 20 million hectares, diversity. And to be honest, it just strikes me sometimes compared to the Amazon and the richness that is in there, the attention that it's getting. But we will, the importance is not only at natural level, it's also at economic level. And that's how that's what our next presenter will show. I would like to give the word to Jose Cartes, director from Guira, Paraguay, and he will explain about an important element, how to conserve this important landscape. Jose, welcome, and yes, next slide, please. Yes.
Thank you, Sander, and I am very happy to be here from the distance. Now, here in Paraguay is very early. So I want to present some of our work under the Pacha project about Bahía Negra planning and other issues. Next, please. So one of the most achievement that we has reached was the land use plan of Bahía Negra municipality or county. Bahía Negra is a very, very huge area that covers all the north of the Paraguay geography and has the size of Netherlands, something like that. So, and also is a very, very few populated county with no more than 3,000 people living there, 90% of them near the Paraguay River. So it's very, very unpopulated geography and natural landscape. So next, please. Our main work was the technical support for this initiative because in the Pacha project, we work very, very close together with the other institutions, including the WWF and IUCN and local stakeholders. No? So Guira Paraguay was very famous because our work in monitoring the deforestation of the Great Chaco from 2011 up to today. So we have the combination of the geography changes and also the biodiversity knowledge, because we have the biggest database about biodiversity in the country. So this was a very, very huge process, including all the stakeholders, including the free, prior, informed consultation with indigenous people. No, and we don't like to say that as a consultation only. We want to, or we like to talk about a long dialogue. For that reason was 4 years of process and several meetings and workshops that we developed with the people. Next, please. So you can see this is the map of Bahía Negra. municipality, and you can see some rivers in the map, but they are not rivers in the real landscape. It's just they have water only seasonally during the summer. And our biggest national park are into this landscape. Next, please. So this is a proposal that is a result of the work of the land use and city planning. This is the map, the technical ordering the quarters of the, because we hope a very, very fast rate of change about the socioeconomics of this small town, because right now it looks like a very, very small town, but the development of agribusiness, mainly the meat production and the soybean production in the future, that's mean that the changes, the socioeconomic changes will be very fast, and the local people could be I don't know how to say displaced, no, socioeconomically. So we are working, trying to give them tools to for reduce the impact of those changes. Next, please. One of our main work was the design of biological of conservation corridors, more appropriately, because the deforestation rate in the Chaco is one of the fastest and the biggest in the overall world. So we are working with the ranchers, mainly because they are owning the land, and we are designing physical connections up to this moment. Next, please. So one of the main work is to develop strategies to involve landowners and strengthen the models of food production into sustainable criteria. That is, and the main criteria is right now to connect the biggest national park of the country with the great national park of Bolivia. Next, please. So we are working very close to the ranchers, especially the APAT is an association of ranchers in this area, and they agree to strengthen those criteria, talking about a production of best quality of food, conserving the biodiversity and conserving the sociocultural aspects of this great landscape. Next, please. Also, right now, we are working with the government because, you know, our government is very, very weak. And our national parks and protected areas in general are very, very weak and very threatened because of that situation. Even the same government is selling lands into national parks. So for that reason, we are working with the WWF and APAT to strengthen the Monumento Natural Cerro Choboreca. It's 100,000 hectares of natural landscape that we are doing right now, the development of the boundaries, no, the cadastral boundaries and legal process to secure this area first, and then to planning in a formal management plan. Next, please. So I think this is a moment of the video. Sander, if you can show a short video that we are talking about.
Yes, so we will show a short video explaining.
Para nosotros era importante de acompañar este proceso porque también a las comunidades indígenas va a ser parte, porque necesitamos tener ese plan de poner cada pauta, cada objeto en su lugar. El tema de la cero deforestación para el pueblo Xi. Entonces eso a nosotros ya es suficiente. Pensamos que nos va a ayudar bastante bien en el futuro.
Thank you, Pepe. That was a very interesting video explaining really how the different actors need to come together to work in this area. And that's the interesting thing, as it's of course still a very an area with a lot of forest, but we know from other parts of this region that development is rapidly coming in. So actually this has progressed it slightly. So maybe a question to you, Pepe. In what way do you think that this this plan will actually help the development, but the conservation as well?
It's a great question. And the answer is not easy, no? We are working right now to trying to strengthen this planning, because every development need to be inclusive, first of all, because the development is fast for someone, but it's not for another part of the society. So for that reason, we are working to be very inclusive in this process and try to build a social agree that what the people of Bahía Negra, what they are seeing for the future of Bahía Negra.
Okay, thanks. And what are the different groups that you that you have worked with? Can you name a couple of civil society actors in Bahía Negra that have been actively participating in this?
Yes, we are working with the political government or the municipality of Bahía Negra. Mm-hmm. We are working with the Ishir people, is the indigenous people from the Paraguay River region of the Pantanal.
Yeah.
And also we are working with the young people through the Chaco-Pantanal organization. It's a local organization right now is growing, and we are supporting them to develop several projects.
Thank you. Yeah, that's clear. So it's not Guira coming to the region wanting this plan, but it's broadly included. Knowledge from a lot of sectors is included. Thank you. So again, so this land use planning connects again to the first presentation of this greater landscape and how a tool, how this can be preserved. So Pepe, I want to thank you for now. We'll get back to you in the panel discussion. So I would like now to invite Maria Teresa, from the director from Natura Bolivia, to present an innovative tool regarding water for this region and for other regions. Maria Teresa, welcome.
Thank you. Do you see me there?
Yes, we see you.
I don't see the presentation. Okay. Hello to everyone. My name is Maria Teresa Vargas. I am speaking to you from Bolivia. I would love to be there and be with all of you, but for now, I am speaking from my country. So can we go to the next slide, please? Today, my story will be about the Toboroche tree and a fox. It's a indigenous legend for the Guarani, and it's the combination between water and forest conservation effort that they do in their own land. Next, please. Before I started, I would like to say that my presentation will have three things. Once, I will talk about the Guarani autonomy government. I will talk what Natura Bolivia does in order to help them to achieve conservation. And then I will try some lessons for our interaction between the Natura and the indigenous in the Chaco. But before that, I want to thank to IUCN Netherlands, especially to you, Sander, and all the 8 partners who has been part of the Chaco-Pantanal effort in the last 5 years. So this has been an effort between 8 institutions, 4 from Paraguay and 4 from Bolivia, to try to achieve conservation in this large ecosystem in the Pantanal and the Chaco. Next, please. So the Guarani indigenous autonomy has gained the autonomy in the last 3 or 4 years. And what it means by autonomy means that the Guarani actually had more capacity and more power to decide what type of development and what type of conservation they can do in their own land. Next, please. We're talking the Charagua-Yambay government is really huge. We're talking they manage like 7 million hectares. It's the same size between the Netherlands and Belgium combined. So imagine it's a really large piece of land with around 35,000 people living there. So few people, big piece of land in this ecosystem. Next, please. Just to see in this map what I would like to show there. And after the Charagua gained autonomy, they create 3 large protected areas. 2 of them have been helped by Natura and have to be with the Irenda. Next, please, can we go to the next slide? With Irenda, where the water is coming from, the house of the Guanaco and the Ñambiguazo. These 2 areas, the Irenda, water coming from, and the house of the Guanaco, it means almost 1 million acres that had been well protected by the indigenous Guarani. Next. So, but all this effort that the Guarani are doing right now in the Bolivian side is facing huge threats. I will talk just 3 of them. One had to do with the infrastructure that are building inside their own territory and had to do with road, but also have to do with infrastructure for the oil sector and the mining sector. Next, please. But I will say the threat that is even more deeply in the Guarani land have to do with the squatter of the land and illegal colonization that are destroying this indigenous land. So after they had been created as an autonomy, they has lost a big piece of land because of the squatter, because the illegal colonization is happening inside the Guarani territory. Can we go to the next, please? Fire is destroying the indigenous ecosystem by far. They faced fire in 2018, 2020, and right now they are in the fire season, and they don't have the equipment enough. They don't have the organization to fight this big fire. And that had to do and have to have a strong connection with the illegal colonization that is happening right now in this autonomy territory. Can we go to the next one? So now I want to talk a little bit what Natura has done to help this indigenous autonomy to strengthen this government. Can we go next, please? So let me explain a little bit what our organization does. We help community to protect water sources. And we do this, and when we say we help, it means that we support them, but they have to do, the people who live on those places in the indigenous land or in the communities, they have to do the conservation. Next, please. So we have a deep philosophy in our work, and we believe those who produce the water share it, and those who benefit from the water share the benefit. Next. The system and the model is really simple. We help the local enterprise, the local municipality, and us to create or enhance a local institution in order to provide enough incentive to the people down up the stream to preserve forests intact or to change practices. And those have to do with the incentive have to do with development projects. It's not any interchange of money between hands and hands, have to do how we help people to change practices and change local and social norms. Next, please. Next. So by now, Natura are working in 60 municipalities across the country. We work with 14,000 farmers or indigenous communities. And those 14,000 farmers are protecting almost 1 million acres across the country and across 5 different ecosystems. And the most important of this, a lot of those resources for help these farmers to do the conservation at the local point, at the local level, is coming from the water enterprise user. So it means every people on the water bill are supporting these farmers to change this practice, to change this norm at the local level. The other thing that Natura does is helping communities and indigenous groups to create protected areas. In that regard, we have more than 3 million hectares that have been helping to create at this local level. 2 of these areas have been created with the support of Pacha project in the Guarani land in the last 3 years. Next, please. But our model also doesn't just implement in Bolivia, we also implement reciprocal watershed agreements in Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. And here you have an example of what happened in Colombia, where they're using this scheme in the Cauca Valley. Next, please. So just to make the connection between the work that Natura does helping community protect water sources and create the development projects, we, the Guarani, have been a strong link with what we do, supporting to create them to access to water and to enhance the conservation around the protected areas they have been created. So it's incentive going to them to actually make real the protection on any of these protected areas that have been created in the Guarani land. Next, please. Now I wanna draw some lessons for our work that we have in the indigenous Guarani land. And I think the first thing that we learned in these 3 or 4 years that we have been working with them is actually the indigenous autonomy can and is a critical first step for conservation, because that helped them to actually create laws and enhance and apply conservation in their own area. Next, please. But I will say the indigenous voices count for little still. Even though they gain the autonomy, supposedly they can decide what type of intervention can be done in the indigenous land like the Guarani. Still, the government has strong power to do a lot of things in this land, and the voice of these indigenous is still counted for little. Next slide, please. I will say now, when they gain this autonomy, the FPIC are really important, even more important for the indigenous autonomy. And that means that they have to have this prior information for whatever they do in their own land, and we should ask for this implementation. Next, please. what we learn also that the strong principles, the Eleanor strong principle, governance of the common, can help to guide indigenous conservation. And I think what happened, few NGOs across the planet and across Bolivia know about the Eleanor Armstrong principle for governing the commons. And I think that could be really important if we embrace all those principles. There are 8 principles, basically how to really manage a common resource at the local level. We should use them more, and I think they can guide a lot of the conservation of this indigenous group. Next, please. Also, what we learned that actually indigenous capacity can build with relative low cost because they don't ask for much. They ask for help to support them to what they are doing already because they are a good custodian of the land at this point. Next, please. And we also know that incentives really matter, and this is clear when we are talking to them to help to enhance these protected areas. So some incentive given to them to actually do the conservation are really important. And finally, the indigenous community often are the last hope of conservation. I think it's a lot of the land in Bolivia who are well protected have to do and is in hands of this indigenous community, not just the Guarani, other indigenous group too. And I think you wanna find places where are better protected, or who are people ready to fight fires also are on in the indigenous land. Next, please. And when we say the indigenous are the last hope of conservation means that maybe in those lands we can find a better balance between development and conservation. And also in those places where we may find that we can achieve many of the development goals. The next one. And now, I wanna go to what I told you at the beginning where we say this will be a legend about the Toborochi tree and the conservation on the indigenous Guarani land. And they have a legend that's really tell a lot about how the Guarani connect with nature. And I think I want just to share this with you. And it goes this way. A fox watching a god approaching and chanting Toborochi tree, whose swollen trunk was full of water. The god opened the trunk and allowed the water to flow, then carefully closed it and picked up all the fish and had flow out. The fox copied him, except the fox was irresponsible and forgot to close the trunk back, and the water was wasted. Every year, the fox opened the tree and killed fishes for fun and not because it needed. Fish will be scared and the Parapeti River will run dry. So that tells you a lot about how the Guarani see the forest, how the Guarani see the water. And what they say, if we look after the water and we look after the forest, they will look after back. And also we tell the Guaranis, we use what we needed, no more than that. And I think that tells you a lot about the connection that have the Guarani with their own ecosystem. And I guess what we have to do is help them to really keep safe their own land. And it's 7 million hectares, I tell you before, is a big piece of land without few people, and the governance that are starting right now for them.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. That was a very interesting presentation on various elements, of course. On the one hand, the way water is preserved, the aras, but also the role of the indigenous groups in Charagua, especially. A direct question to you is, how do you think, currently we have, there's NGOs, there's international groups, there's businesses, and we have the Charagua government. How can we strengthen those elements within Charagua at the long run to maintain this vision, basically? What elements are needed for that? Can you elaborate on that slightly?
Thank you, Sander. I think we have to remember that the Charagua autonomy is really young. They have 3 to 4 years to have been created as an autonomy. So we still need, they need a lot of support in order to manage their own natural resources. Just by the thinking in the organization side, they start in the organization, how they will use natural resources. We're discussing right now for long time the new law for protected areas. So just that tells you that one, that process take a long time because, you know, they do this consultation process really deeply at the local community. So if you ask me what needs to be done, I think is to support them and all this process that are working through to try to all the NGOs make them successful, because if they are successful, other indigenous group will fight for autonomy. And I think I told you before, autonomy maybe is the first step for a good conservation and effective conservation on the ground. And is that true? We have to work with them to make it successful. So then maybe other indigenous group will copy this model. And I think there's still a long way to go to be successful. As I told you before, they have huge threats. They're grabbing land in this territory. In the last 2 years, they lost a lot. So how we make them successful is working hands on hands, helping with the need that they have on the ground actually, and helping with raise the voices against the government.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. And I would like to go over to Pepe just to reflect on that model in Bolivia. What can Paraguay learn from that? Because it's a unique area in Nicaragua. And although it's a similar ecosystem in a way, the political setting is so different. How can Paraguay learn from this strong vision of the Guarani in Nicaragua?
Thank you, Sander. We have too much issues to learn. And one of these is the water issue. I think in Paraguay, the water issue is very, very underestimated. We are not taking seriously the focus of the water dynamics in this landscape. On the other hand, we are working very similar issues, especially the fire, because we need to strengthen our fire management capacity. And in that sense, we need to coordinate efforts from Bolivia and Paraguay, because the winds in this region are ever from the north, and every fire that is originated in Bolivia also reach the Paraguayan landscape. So I think we need to work together and more strength capacity building of fire management. And remember that the Chiquitano forest and part of the forest on the north part of the Chaco is very, very fire adapted and need to be managed.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a strong link between the different countries. This fire, which actually occurred already. Sorry, Pepe, you said yeah. So I had a question from the YouTube. If there's questions from the audience, there is an opportunity for that as well. But first, a question from YouTube for you, Pepe. What will be the status of the corridors in national parks be when agriculture further expands? So currently in the land use plan of Bahía Negra, there you explained that there are various corridors planned. What happens when in the future the agricultural pressure increases there? And can these companies also play a role to respect or rebuild those corridors?
Thank you for the question. It's a very interesting question, because we are working to develop these corridors landscape vision over the licenses, the legal license to the ranchers. And most of the ranches are not clean yet. They only have the permission, and all the ranch is a forest. So we are working with them right now to change, if possible, to adapt those licenses to the corridor vision, and trying to convince them that it's a best option to keep those corridors as a green label for the food that they produce. Fortunately, agriculture is not too much developed in the region, but it could be possible a broad development in the future about agriculture, but mostly it's meat production.
Yeah, thank you. So actually you confirm that these companies can play a role. They have a role to play through our companies, the landowners of those cattle ranchers mostly. So it is important, of course, also to maintain the legislation at that level regarding the part that they need to preserve. I would like to ask a question to Marcelo from Nativa. This example in Paraguay, trying to connect the Defensores del Chaco area with the area of the north, basically connecting it with Bolivia, Choboreca and other areas. How is this example can be used for other parts in the region?
Thank you. Well, it's quite interesting because if you see, Paraguay has these nice connections that are making with Iraq, going to the north. And we have this huge landscape of almost nobody between Otuquis, Ñembihuazo, and Cailla. So we have this natural corridor flowing from east to west in the area. And we're also hoping to have the same connection on the south, going from Cailla to Oaxaca, and then trying to get these places around Oaxaca in the west, to have this connection that Wira is working with all these cattle ranchers in the northern place of Paraguay.
Okay, thank you. So, and Natura, are you also part of that corridor vision? I mean, as some protected areas, Maria Teresa, are of course already adjacent, but in some cases there is a gap between protected areas so how do you look at that? For example, the Irenda protected area is not that connected in that sense. What's your vision in that sense? Does that need to be connected, or is that not necessary? Or what's the vision of the Charagua people? Yeah, thank you.
You know, Sander, I think having the concept corridor is good just to know what is strategic for conservation, and maybe just look at the big picture and say, you know, we should preserve this, and see. But actually, the conservation happens on the ground. It doesn't happen on the map. It doesn't happen in the mind of the people. It happens what people is able to do on the ground and what they're able to conserve. And I think that is what really matters, at least for us. No? So how we help really to drown from this big picture of this concept of corridor to actually what will happen on the ground is the most important link if you want to achieve conservation. Yeah? And I think for that is like water has been something that unifies people for good or for bad. Yeah, but they take action based on that. So for us, water has been the way how even the Guarani, who have really dry land, but has a mountain, really unify, say, we will protect this piece of land because it makes sense for us. It's water for our houses, but water also for production. So this is why they're preserving Irenda in this case. No? But also like with the Guanaco, it's a strong relation with the local people there. Say, you know, Guanaco represent us. It's like a type of llama for people who don't understand what is a Guanaco. Is a big thing there, and this is identity, it's something identity for them. So this is why they want to protect. So what I meant, Sander, is like we have to find a way how to draw from this big thing in something that people actually can conceptualize and do some action in order to protect. Being indigenous, being a big farmer, big a government have to have a stake in order to do a real conservation on the ground.
And would that take a lot of funding? I mean, it's a huge landscape, but currently it seems that like major multilateral donors have not yet entered the landscape. What would be needed to that's actually a question to the three of you. I mean, how do we create a financial system, both locally on the ground, self-sustaining, but also through international cooperation, because there are values there, like you said, Maria Teresa, there various aspects regarding the SDGs. Let us start at the bottom. How do we create this financial system at the bottom to conserve this area? Maybe we start with Marcelo, and then what do you think is needed for this financial mechanism?
Well, we have developed already a financial strategy for the whole landscape, and we need to have bigger donors to be able to pitch in for the conservation of the area, and also local government has started to be pitching in for this big conservation area to be able to preserve the area, but not only with money but also with actions. As you said, it's important to have actions, laws to be able to protect the area and to be able to walk along with these conservation initiatives that we're working on. So we need both places. I mean, we need private and public funding and also actions in the area.
Yeah, so we need to find a way to raise those public and private funds. Pepe, how do you see that? Where can we find this connection? I think you have several mechanisms that you have elaborated in Paraguay. How do you see this for this landscape?
Yeah. If we think about the overall landscape and the scale that we are talking about, it's almost very, very challenging to develop a fund to keep 20 million of hectares well managed. So we need to develop a keystone vision to identify which keystone we can build one step by step. So right now we are focusing the green business from natural landscape as a keystone that we can apply. And we are trying to replicate our experience with yerba mate in the south of the country as a green business that we are developing in the Atlantic forest. Of course, in the Pantanal, they are not yerba mate, but we have honey of best quality honey that you can taste. I am trying to sell my honey, but we are requesting right now support to develop a vision like this, that a green business that could provide benefits for the local people over a natural landscape.
Thank you, Jose. Maria Teresa, what's your view on this financial mechanism for this landscape?
Well, let me organize my thinking in three ways. I will say, of course, for this area, we need a lot of resources, but I will say at the beginning, I guess international cooperation will be good to have it, and it's important to have just to push the wheel running through. But I will say in the long run, you really need to scale up local resources because those are sustainable. Those will be there in the long run, but always the international cooperation is good at the start, but then you have to have the resources on place. And that means have to be the private sector in your country, have to be the local community, have to be the government putting resources. And in Bolivia, Coca-Cola start supporting like many places to do real conservation on the ground, but it's not just that. Finance and bank also are doing, Banco Mercantil Santa Cruz are supporting also a lot of these fire season experiments that are happening in the ground. So I will say in the long run, at the beginning, we need international cooperation. In the long run, we need money from the local sources in order to be sustainable over time.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. So I want to ask the public, is there a question that you have? Yes, please come to the microphone and state your organization and name.
Okay, my name is Sarah
A bit
Otterstrom.
closer, please.
Closer?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
No, I don't hear you.
We do.
Okay.
You do? Okay.
Okay.
My name is Sarah Otterstrom. I work with an organization called Paso Pacifico in Central America. And my question really is about in the finance subject. I don't hear any of you talking about carbon finance. And I'd be very interested to hear, you don't have to give me any dirty details, but just some of your perspectives and what are the barriers to carbon finance for the work that you do.
Thank you. Who, Maria Teresa?
Sarah, thank you for your question. I guess we in Bolivia don't talk about carbon because it's an internal policy in the country that are not allowed to, or they treat like carbon in our forests as a commodity. So we're not allowed to trade any type of environmental services by law in Bolivia. But besides that, just talking in general, I would say actually carbon can be for indigenous groups across Latin America, one of the sources that will help them to protect ecosystems. So if we don't have that barrier in Bolivia, definitely for Charagua, who are 7 million hectares, few population there, and they are really poor, carbon could be a way that at least the base of finance for these communities, but we can access those resources in the country, at least not at the moment. But yes, Colombia are doing, Peru are doing right now. So I think it is one of the sources that can be help to sustainable many of those places in Latin America.
Thank you. Pepe, do you want to elaborate on the Paraguay situation regarding carbon?
In Paraguay, it's different situation because until now, at least, the government has not the same policy as Bolivia. So we, with Paraguay, we have the first project of RED Plus about property that we have buy jointly with the Isher people. It's called Tobich property. And this is a good experience of RED Plus project with social benefits. And right now we are preparing 2 more projects about the strengthening those corridors that we are showing in the map. So if we are successful, we will tell you later.
Thank you, Pepe. So any other questions from the public at this moment? No. Then I have one more question from the YouTube channel, which is regarding water users and water protectors. I guess that's firstly a question for Maria Teresa. Can water users also be interested or involved in firefighting somehow, or how does that work? What should be done to involve those connected basically to the forests that are burning, but they also need the water from that area? Can they be involved in the firefighting, or is that already happening?
I guess it's already happened, at least in our case in Bolivia. But you know what is important maybe is the question before that is like why fire is happening and how this affecting our local communities and our forests, our ecosystem in our countries. And I would say many of our ecosystem for fires is not part of the ecosystem like happen in other places in South Africa or the US or many other places. So fire in our country is happening because the hands of the people, because the hands of somebody who decided to use fire as a tool of agriculture or cattle or clear a new land. So, and the cost of society for doing that is really high. We are losing not just the ecosystem, we are losing all the infrastructure in many places for water, access to water. So the cost of society is really high, and we have to rethink with the government and with the private sector and with the community how we manage fire in general, because it's affecting us in different ways. No? And it's happened because the cattle ranger is growing globally in Latin America, especially in Bolivia and Paraguay and other countries. So we are losing forests not because the agricultural frontier expanded, because the cattle range has been expanded. And that's one of the main reasons that we have to think in how to do that. And how people get involved from the at some point when you are in a watershed, it's not, you lose this idea where you are in the watershed. All of us are worried about what happened with fire, what happened with our ecosystem, and how we save that. And yes, we need to be involved. As in young people will change policy, will change what the government does. So they need to be involved, and they need to, the voice being heard outside. So use social media, approach your politician at the local level, and mobilize yourself, because I think that will change policy in our countries.
Thank you, Maria Teresa. Regarding fire in Paraguay, has that any relation with water use, Pepe? How does that work? Are you able to mobilize local people to fight the fires in the Chaco?
Yes, it's not a strong relationship from water users and fire coping, because there are very, very few people in Paraguay, in the Chaco. We have not a lot of water users, but the ranchers, yes, of course. They use the groundwater, and right now they are organizing in some way to combat these fires. But they are a problem, because I told you that the north of the Chaco is a ecosystem, a fire adapted ecosystem. So we need to manage the fire in some way. And it could be difficult to understand that the avoiding fires could be more dangerous than managing the fires in the future. So we need a lot of research, and we need a lot of capacity building. And we are working with WWF into that, and in Bahía Negra, in the APAD Ranchers Association. So I think we need also to change the national law to develop a better fire management at county and local level.
Thank you. And now for rounding off this session, I would like a final comment by all participants. What are your next steps and what are the perspectives that you see regarding conservation in this landscape? So if you look 10 years ahead, 2030, you have presented models, some work, some parts are more complicated. So what's really the next step that you will try to work on? I would first like to go to Marcelo from Nativa.
Thank you. Well, it's a quite interesting question. Sorry, but it's raining in Santa Cruz right now, so hopefully it will be raining up in the Guaso, so no more days, hopefully. But it's a very complicated question that you gave us. But it's a really good question for us to be dreaming about the future in the landscape. In 10 or 20 years, we would like to see an established landscape with all these conservation initiatives and implementation be successful in the area. But right now we have to think about the fire, as Pepe was saying before. Fire is a really big issue in the area. So in only 4 days, we have a fire that went up from the northern part of Guaso to Paraguayan border in only 4 days. So it ran at 25 kilometers per hour, this fire. So we have to think about fire management. I think that's will be our next step so far in the landscape.
Okay, the next step is really the fire situation. Thank you, Marcelo. And Jose, how do you see, what's your perspective if you look 10, 20 years ahead for this landscape? What are your next major steps? We talked about corridors, we talked about bees. How do we involve more actors and attract this attention to this unique landscape?
There are several steps. It's like a running. But we with Paraguay, we are we are owners of more than 30,000 hectares of reserves in this landscape. So our priority is to secure our land tenure and management of those reserves. So we are working about the financing them, and also to develop a more comprehensive green business framework, including nature tourism based and honey production or other green commodity that we can develop in the region. And of course, the strengthening of the national parks are very, very important to keep the core areas of this corridors landscape vision.
Yeah, that connects, of course, very closely to the ambitions that there are worldwide regarding biodiversity, climate. So there is a huge carbon stock in this area, a huge biodiversity stock. So it is crucial that the world sees this and gets closer to this. Maria Teresa, what's your vision for the next 10, 20 years regarding this landscape?
Sandra, you know, I feel urgently things that I would like to happen. One thing is like climate change is not a thing from the gringos. It's happening in the ground. Is you see, and at the local level, you see with the municipalities, you see with the farmers. So I feel that if we don't do something serious on that as a society, as a global thing, you know, we are in a catastrophe already. So what we could do for that is at least save all the ecosystems that are in hands of the indigenous community. You know, I like the idea of big picture, but I really like to focus at least to say, if 70% of the planet are in the hands of the indigenous community, and that happened also in Bolivia, how we help them to better protect this land, and how we help them also to get resources, financial resources in order to do that, but also in order to develop economic means by preserving those forests. So I think that's the challenge that we have. And I think if we all conservation NGOs and focus at least in regard to that, to say we will support all the indigenous groups to preserve as much as they could their own land and those resources and those ecosystems are in that, I guess that would be a huge step going forward.
Thank you. So really supporting the base up from the basis, the conservation of the indigenous area. I thank you very much. Marcela, do you would like to add something to this?
Yes, Sander, hello everybody. Yes, I think that we have a big challenge. No? Yeah, this is a huge, as our vision that is huge, but I think that's necessary to have this huge vision because we have to clear what is our end, so where we want to go in. And after that, we have many work to do. I think that at different levels. In one way, we have to work with the governments. Local governments we have to strengthen in the capacity of the local governments to go forward. No, also the people that is inside. So the indigenous people. And also the people that is changing the landscape. No, also like Wira told us. Most of the people, we have too many, we have cattle inside, no? We don't have too much agriculture, but just cattle. And we have to work with them. Now in the global world, we have demand for meat. So we have to work with the people that give that meat, no? So we have to work maybe we are is not going to able to, that tomorrow we are not going to have cattle in the areas. We are going to have, and maybe more, but we want to look for ways to do that meat in the good way, that keeping the forests that is a way that we are looking now, giving certifications now that is growing. Of course, that the fast of the growing of the certification is not too fast that we want, but give the certification that the people that produce in good way and things like that. So we have to work in different levels.
Thank you, Marcela. So what you're, Marcela from Nativa Bolivia as well. Thank you for adding this point. So what you're adding is really this connection and making sure that we're ready for these new economic developments. By this final statement, I think we have showed the public the enormous diversity of this landscape. I would like to thank all the speakers. I would like to thank the participants here, the public, I would like to say and call upon the international community to pay attention to this landscape, to make sure that the culture, the carbon and the ecosystem services that are currently still present and with relatively few investments can be preserved, can be kickstarted from the ground. There are a lot of ideas. So I call upon that. And for now, I would like to thank Maria Teresa from Natura Bolivia, Jose Cartes from Guira, Paraguay, Marcelo Chiles from Nativa, and Marcela. Thank you, Zamora from Nativa Bolivia. Thank you all and have a good day.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Bye bye. See you later. Have fun.